It's been a good amount of time since the last agent tier list, and a couple things have shifted. Some are straight up agent changes that ripple down the chain, and other times it's literally just the map pool rotation. But either way, it's time to update it so you guys can go for the last push of the act for this episode. With all that being said, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. I like to do D, C, B, A, S tier all in order, starting from the bottom. This time we only have 2 agents in D tier. Agent number 1 is still unfortunately Astra. Astra is someone who never fully recovered from her chain of nerfs. I do sound like a broken record because the last few agent tier lists have me saying the same thing. She has a lot of potential. You really need a good team to work with you for it to actually be effective. You need a strategy and a team comp to properly execute the agent itself. And overall, Astra is just not the strongest smoke pick you can choose overall. So Astra is the last place agent for this tier list. If you are an Astra main, it's fine. If you're having fun, it's fine. Keep something in mind. This agent tier list focuses around kind of solo duo play across all the ranks, but even more for the average player, being the low to mid-high ranks, not pro play, not VCT, not Radiance only, not Irons only, etc. So it's more of an average tier list, and if we think on average, playing Astra just really isn't the way. The second agent in D tier is Harbor. Harbor actually is, though, in my opinion, better than Astra, so I want to make that clear. Harbor does suffer from similar stuff to Astra in the sense that he really does benefit off team executions. He had a rise in pro play and people thought he would climb the ranks, but as quickly as he rose in pro play, everyone also left him in pro play after their executes and plans started to be acknowledged. Like, they had a secret plan and they did great with it, but once the enemies adapted and Harbor really saw no changes, he also then fell off. And when it comes to the solo duo play for the low to mid to high ranks, he is also not a absolute great pick. With all that being said, though, I actually believe Astra is like substantially lower than Harbor in the sense that if you are a Harbor main and you are really good, you can still get away with playing Harbor effectively, but he is still weaker than everyone else on this list, and in my opinion, still just not the best controller that you can pick. Not as bad as Astra, but really, really, really far from being the best. But that concludes D tier. We're already in C tier, starting with KO. I actually originally thought KO was a little bit higher. He has officially been downgraded from the last agent tier list. He continues to see minimal play and him not being the most effective. Now, if you're like mid-low, let's say silver, gold, and you get decent at KO, you can help push the enemies back. You can get easy information with very, very little pushback, right? Throwing that knife, huge cone. Sometimes even if it's spotted, they won't shoot it fast enough in the lower ranks. So you can find some value with KO, but I feel his curve sort of falls off a cliff, and the minute you hit even plat plus, people know how to play against him a lot more effectively. And even then, even with all that, let's say the odds of you getting picked up, the odds of you playing with your team to effectively execute using your ult is still very, very minimal. He isn't absolute trash, and that's the beauty of the entire rest of the tier list, is that for the most part, if you get really good at any agent and you really learn their pros, or I guess their strengths and weaknesses, you can do pretty well in ranked. But if we're talking about playing what's meta, KO is just not going to be there. Following this, we have Breach. I substantially think Breach can be better than KO, for example, if you get really good at Breach. You can be very oppressive, but the odds of you being oppressive, especially in the mid to low ranks, is very, very low. But let's take it a step further. Even in Diamond and Ascendant, most people don't want to see Breach mains, because unless they are absolutely one-trick fantastic mains, they will be doing more harm than good. No, I'm not saying they're just going to be flashing and hitting their own team. That shouldn't really be happening outside of like Iron, really, but I know it can happen in the lower ranks. Point being is that Breach, to be effective, is more about timing, meaning Breach using his abilities is to set someone else up. If you are strictly duoing, you can maybe make Breach work pretty effectively, but even then, it gets better and better the more the team can work with their Breach. That's the truth. A good team with a good Breach can do some pretty crazy stuff and set up insane plays that can be oppressive, especially against another 5 random teams. So if you're duoing, maybe trioing, and you're minimizing the amount of randoms on your team, and you guys have a good execute plan, like your duo is one of the craziest freaking Jetts you've ever seen, and you want to set up a crazy entry, yes, breach can be effective. But once you hit that niche where you have to hit a lot of variables for the agent to be good, then they're going to suffer in an agent tier list, and that's why you see breach down here. Next up, we got chamber, and it's funny because it's not the same as breach. You can completely be a dominant solo chamber, but when you're relying only on your aim, you're going to have to be an excellent aimer to find amazing value with chamber, and that's his niche, right? That's his variable that you have to check, actually hitting your shots and being very good at aiming. And I think for the vast majority of us, no matter how good we think we are, obviously we're in the rank that we're in because there's a lot of things to improve on, and sometimes one of those is aiming. And even if it's not, even if you're genuinely, let's say a gold with diamond level aim, but you're still stuck in gold, it means that your game sense and other things are suffering. And I can't recommend chamber in that case, because you should probably be playing other agents and studying where your kind of pitfalls are with game sense, and there's probably better agents to help fill those holes than chamber. So kind of a double-edged sword. Even if you're absolutely cracked or not cracked with aiming, you might suffer by playing chamber. Yes, there are a ton of high-ranking chambers who do great, and like I said multiple times, that you can do well on pretty much all agents, and chamber can be oppressive, but he's still not going to be up there. I think I might have had him in B tier last patch, but I think the last time I did the agent patch, Breeze was still in here, and when you're talking about Breeze, chamber can be a little bit more effective. But even regardless of that, if we're taking the average player, you're probably better off not playing chamber. Moving on from there, we have Vice. Now, Vice. Okay, Vice is our latest agent and has not been placed previously on my channel. So this is the first time I am placing Vice, and I am placing her in C tier. And it's very simple why. I don't think Vice is really that bad, but I just don't think she's that good. I genuinely think she's mid. And for that reason, I almost did put her in B tier, but she gets pushed down to C because of how much better the other options are. How much crazier better they are, like so much better. And she's a bit boring to play. A lot of people agree with that. So I just think overall she's not the best pick. I don't think she's the worst either. We saw her pick rate fall pretty substantially, and she's not being played much at all. And that is part to two things. She's boring and she's not that effective. Her flash is probably the most fun and effective part of her kit. The rest is kind of a yikes, to say the least. And now we enter B tier. Now the best thing here is basically from here on out, it's kind of up to you. You can play a B tier agent more effectively than any S tier agent. Just sort of depends on who you are. Are you trying to master a new agent or learn something new in this video? Or if it's just straight for info and to validate who you already main. If you haven't seen your agent so far, you're kind of in the safe from being flamed. Sage has finally gotten a buff, and before 9.10, this video was already being made and she was actually in C tier. However, after her recent buffs, I think she can squeeze herself into the B tier category. So the reason I'm putting her here in B tier is because I do believe the buffs are substantial enough to help her out a good deal. Let me explain. Because I always felt that Sage was sort of niche depending on the map and team composition. And I still don't think she's absolutely busted or broken. However, her slow orbs directly countering duelist initiations is a big deal because she is now a stronger counter to opposing agents that are prominent in the meta. Her use case has now expanded. On top of that, the self-heal being an extra 20 is still also substantial. And that's not to mention her alt orb reduction, which allows her to get that alt a lot more consistently. And it is an alt that's always been strong. It's one of the things that makes Sage pretty prominent. The only reason she was in C tier is because originally most people played for her wall, and that wall was better on some maps than others, where everything else wasn't as consistent. But with more consistent ultimates and more consistent anti-push orbs, even against duelists, she is just a lot stronger now. Not broken, just more consistent, and I think she is balanced and in B tier. With that being said, I still believe she does have countless other weaknesses, and she isn't always going to be the best pick. She's not sort of like, I don't believe Riot overtuned her. I think they just finally were able to make her more usable, and honestly, thank goodness for that. Viper. So the thing with Viper is she was S for a long time, and then A, and then got nerfed, and now I think she's properly in B. You actually might see some other agent tier lists putting her lower, like straight up like C tier, which kind of throws me off because while I understand Breeze is not in the map pool and she did get nerfed, if we're just talking about an average player in ranked, getting good at Viper can be oppressive, and that's just the truth. Like even into Plat Diamond, if you're a good Viper, it is hard to face you. And I'm not just talking about using your ult effectively. I'm talking about learning how to use all your smokes effectively and learning how to push back the enemies while having good setups on site. Now, Now I get it. The lack of being able to move stuff around does bring her down. Like no matter how good you are, it's hard to say Viper's A tier anymore just because you can't pick up on go and the other nerfs really did affect her. But still, if you're a good Viper main, she's right in the middle. I think she's just a solid B tier. That's my opinion. Now this next one, all right, listen, there's one thing I will always admit to is I'm open to being wrong. My last agent tier list, I ripped Deadlock open. I put her in F. And F isn't an actual tier that I use, but I put her below D. That's how much I hated Deadlock, and that's how much I believed she was bad. And now in this tier list, she is B, just because people have clearly improved with her. Clearly I was wrong, and I'm open to being wrong. I thought she was the way of the harbor, where we saw her rise in pro play, and then people would try to adapt it, but then it would fall off anyways, since no major changes have occurred. With that being said, nope, pros adapted her, people learned from the pros, and people were able to execute it even while playing Deadlock solo. I still don't think she's the best in my opinion. I personally still wanted to put her C, but I also cannot be stubborn or ignorant. When I'm doing my own research, when I check other people's tier lists, when I ask Radians, it's the most fair to put her in B. I think B is good just because she will fluctuate a lot. With your skill is one thing, but with your game knowledge, like any random Deadlock in like iron, silver, gold, even plat might suffer a lot more than the higher ranks, but it depends on your strengths and weaknesses. If your strength as a player is really solid game knowledge and awareness, then Deadlock can shine more, but she's still not the best sentinel, so I think B is just a fair placement. Talking about Deadlock was before 9.10, but it doesn't really change anything. She's just more consistent with her ultimate thanks to that minor buff, I suppose. It doesn't really change much, just want to put that in there. Everything else I say about Deadlock, I still hold strong on that. Next up, we got Fade. Fade is a solid B tier. Overall, Fade is like, it's weird. I think I've put Fade in B tier every list. I'm not gonna lie. Fade is always just a consistently decent pick. Not the best agent you can choose to master, but if you really enjoy playing Fade, there's no reason to not master her because you can probably do decently well across all the ranks as long as you continuously improve. Like within each rank, let's say you're improving your aim, you're improving your game knowledge, you're improving your utility usage, you're improving your executes. Like Fade will kind of go with and through the motions across all ranks without completely holding you back at all, but not excelling you or propelling you forward because she's not exactly meta. So in my opinion, she's just B. Like she's the face of B in my opinion. She's perfect B. From here, we have Skye. Okay, Skye is crazy. Skye used to be like S, then A. The nerfs definitely did hit her, and there's absolutely no doubt about it. I still kind of sometimes want to put her like A- because I still think she's very strong, but she is falling in line similar to Fade. So in my opinion, it's kind of like Fade, but better to some extent, like similar to what I just said about Fade. As you go through the ranks and you improve, as long as you're improving all the aspects, Skye will go with you through the motions and you can do well in the low ranks as well as the high ranks with her, but she's just overall a little bit stronger. Like I put Skye more closer to A-, B+, but she has a very similar concept where she's just a solid pick without really any glaring weaknesses and definitely more strengths than anything else, just not overpowered because Riot nerfed her. Hopefully that makes sense. Next up, we got Brimstone. Brimstone I downgraded from A. I think Brimstone is a solid pick, and funny enough, similar to Skye and Fade, yes, you can continue to play Brimstone from the bottom to the top, but the thing about mastering Brimstone, while there is still a skill ceiling like every agent, it is a lot shorter. So once you get the hang of Brimstone, he sort of has the benefit in the sense that you can kind of get his max utility and usefulness to your team a lot quicker. So you can get the whole, I know how to play this agent and his abilities a lot quicker than you can Fade, and a lot quicker than you can get Skye, right? Like Skye is still a little harder to play than Fade, and Fade is still harder to play than Brimstone overall. And messing up on Brimstone is just going to happen less and less, especially when you start getting very used to using his smokes. Yes, you can iPad and still mess up those smokes because of game knowledge, but not exactly mechanic. Well, you can misclick, but for the most part, less mechanically and more game knowledge. So he can help you improve your game knowledge rapidly, but he's not just broken, and I think B is a good spot for him. Some people will eat me alive for this, especially high tier, high ranking players. Like I have a couple Radiants who really keep saying A tier, but in my opinion, I think for the average rank overall through the motion, B is good for Brimstone. Next, we have Yoru. Yoru is basically my personal main, and I think Yoru is always pretty fluid. Like, he can kind of be like A and S tier, but if you misuse him, he can be useless as well. Like, he can literally be D tier if you misuse him, and he can be S tier if you're a pro, but his skill floor is already high, and then his skill ceiling is exceptionally higher. I main him, and I'm not a great player still, and I still make a ton of mistakes, and it's just so easy to make a ton of mistakes. So the fact that if you watch an Immortal Radiant Yoru, you'll still see them make mistakes because it's just in his kit, in the moment as you're playing, as everything, if things get fast paced, you can just mess up. It's just still prone to messing up a lot more easily. And to get the value, not only do you have to sort of master his skill, but the game knowledge gotta follow quick, like really quick. When we're talking about where you're TPing, why you're TPing, where your clone is going, how is it gonna affect the enemy's knowledge, or what info they believe they have, and how it will affect your team, and how to execute as a duelist and lurk equally. Like, you need to know when to lurk and when to be that duelist that gets onto site for your team a lot more than, let's say, Jett. A little bit more no brain on what your job is. Yoru is fluid, and because of that, D and S is all in his rank, so I think it's only fair to put him right in the middle between all 5 ranks, which would be like a B+ in my personal opinion. Next up, we got Sova. Sova also historically has been placed a little bit higher. He's still very, very strong, and I still think learning Sova is a great option if you're interested, or if you already main Sova. Continuing to master him is a great option. Sova is one of those agents where, yes, you can definitely see people pop off basically 1vxing with Sova, but then he can be a really great team player, and he's one of the things that one of the agents that I'd call reliable. That's the thing about Sova, is that even if you're not having the best day, just using your utility and changing up the way you're playing with your team can effectively really help you win the game still, and he continuously stays reliable. You can still mess up, of course, but once you get used to him quite often, you're rarely going to mess up a lot of what you got to do. Sure, we see crazy lineups with Sova, but you don't need to do that to be effective. Sure, learn a few. It's very good to have in your arsenal, but most Radiant players are still just throwing the arrow to the back of sight, to be honest with you. They just know how to time it and when to do it and where to do it, but otherwise Sova is effective and reliable. The last agent on the B tier is Raina, and she's always controversial on this list. You have people in the comments saying she is trash, don't play her, she doesn't have the utility to really help, and other people who are like, lol, have you seen Smurfs on the enemy team? 50 and 0. Like, there's no middle when it comes to Raina, but now there is. B is in the middle. The thing with Raina is, yes, if you genuinely believe you are better than everyone else, choose Raina and humble yourself, because that is the fastest way to understand what Raina is about. Raina is strong, and if you're popping off and you're doing really good, nothing's changed. I've said this every agent tier list, so we're gonna make it quick. She is strong, you're doing great, and can suck up all the utility from her kit. It's amazing. Even her ult, just now that when you ult, it just stays throughout the entire round. You don't have to time it and accidentally mistime it. Makes it even easier. The odds of you messing up on Raina, especially when it comes to just playing round to round, is basically impossible. Like, just learn to flash low and high depending on what's happening, search it up, and that's it. You now understand the basics of Raina. Now don't miss, because if you miss, you're useless. It's that simple. And because she's such a high risk, high reward, it's unfair to put her at the bottom nor the top, because it is way too player dependent. Similar to Yoru, just for different factors. I think it's just fair to put her in B tier. That's my honest opinion. Yay, now we get into the A tier. These are all pretty strong agents, so this is going to be fun. So I'm putting Phoenix in A tier here, and this is a fantastic change I was looking forward to. Fun fact, before 9.10, like I've already mentioned previously, this video was already being made, and I had Phoenix in A tier anyways. I was kind of bouncing between B and A tier, but I think a lot of the things that I believe made him strong are now even stronger thanks to that minor rework. Allowing yourself to be more mobile while healing instead of huddling into a corner to get that effect will allow map control to be 10 times better. And that is just additive with Phoenix's wall now going through other walls, similar to how Harbor is. Being able to curve your wall through other walls to get much further sight lines completely closed out, and then being able to peek through that wall and maybe go for a wide swing and still being consistently healed is great. Not to mention, before you peek that wall, you can throw that flash, wide swing, as you're healing, hopefully get a kill, and then reset for another flash. That is super good. I honestly think they did great with Phoenix, but they didn't make him broken. I still think you genuinely need to get good at Phoenix for him to be A tier, if that makes sense. There's a lot of agents here. Like my A tier isn't just broken, mindless, they'll just be good no matter what. No, Phoenix is easy to pick up, but I still believe he is hard to master, and understanding how to master him will benefit you greatly. You will genuinely get so much better results as you improve on him game after game, which makes him such a rewarding character. I also just genuinely believe he is so strong in the mid to like low high tier ranks, like gold to diamond specifically, because he is a great solo queue duelist that is more adaptable and less one-sided than a lot of other duelists. But allowing that wall to be more flexible for map control now allows you as a duelist player, especially in solo queue, if your team is not helping with map control and you need to properly take space that isn't as mindless as a Jett just dashing in, you can do so, which just makes him way more versatile than a lot of other duelists, and I absolutely love Phoenix for that. I guess maybe I'm a little bit of a Phoenix simp at this point, but my feelings towards Phoenix were changing consistently from like C to B and A before this rework and what many consider now a solid buff. So in my opinion, Phoenix gets a solid A tier, and I just think he is a great agent all around. Before you hear me yap about Neon, I just want to say I put her in A tier here because she's still very strong and basically broken, and a lot of people do put her in S tier. However, a nerf is right around the corner, and if it nerfs her slide accuracy, she's still going to be a strong duelist, but it won't be busted S tier and it'll be A tier. So I'm just going to say for now she's S tier, but in this list I'm putting her A tier to future-proof into patch 9.11, which isn't far off, where she's definitely getting a substantial nerf, and I'm going to predict it's going to put her in A tier, just a very strong duelist, just not mindlessly broken. You can slide and head tap, and if you're someone like Tens, you've seen the clips, slide, head tap, slide, head tap, slide, head tap, like 3 after the other. It's insane, to be honest. Some people are popping their ult just to pull out their gun and do another slide to head tap, because the accuracy being 100% is crazy. Apex Legends and Valorant is crazy. But outside of that, even if you're not perfect with Neon, just learning the basics of Neon mechanics and movement, which while it can look overwhelming, watch a couple of videos, head into customs, practice it, you will become hard to hit. And if you can get good Neon movement at gold faster than the opposing gold can get good enough aim to take you out quickly. That's just the thing. That's just straight up. And then it just works because the higher you get, the crazier your movement can get, so you can hopefully outpace the aim on the opposing team. Neon's just great. Initiate, change it up, be sporadic, and she's fun. So Neon being A tier, sort of a no-brainer. Next up, we got Jett. I know we got the triple duelist here. A lot of duelists in A tier, and we're not even done. Jett is great, reliable. Really, I've said this same situation every tier list, and I don't mean to, but it is somewhat true. Even if you were to mess up as Jett, if you get that smoke down and you're dashing into sight, taking space, helping push back the enemy team, you can do a lot with your team. If your team's following up there and, you know, it's just a bonus if you get a pick, get a double pick, you can really win rounds just like that, especially in the low to medium. And when I say medium, I'm counting plat and diamond ranks. People are going to be playing a lot better against you higher up in the ranks, but you're also going to get better, have more game knowledge, and just learning just to pop those smokes down and play around with them. She's very, very mobile as an agent, and I think she benefits a lot of not just mechanical skill, but 100% knowing how... Awareness. That's what I was going to say, game knowledge, but no, like she benefits a ton from awareness. That's the thing. Like, if you can up your mechanical skill plus awareness, you can be quite dominant on Jett. She's been high ranking basically since Valorant's release, and she continues to do so up here in A tier. And we can't really dismiss the fact you can still op and dash. Like, Jett is an amazing operator character as well, so if you get good at the op, yeah, it's GG. After that, we got Raze. Yes, another duelist. I think Raze did fall a little bit. She was S tier for a while. Now I actually think maybe Phoenix, Neon, and Jett are all a little bit better than Raze. Take that with a grain of salt. I still think she's a great agent, similar to the other duelists. Being aware and knowing how to take a site and then just getting really good at that can make you a lot more dominant than you may believe. I would say maybe with Raze, what puts her a little bit worse, but some of you may disagree, is like you throwing your, let's say, nade more willy-nilly without thinking, missing the rocket, the boombot nerf that made it shorter distance a while ago, all kind of played out to, even the satchel changes, all played out to Raze just being a little bit harder to utilize fully and a little bit more prone to messing up. So maybe I should have led with Raze because I think she's more like A-, B+, but that's just my personal opinion. For the most part, on most people's agent tier list, she's quite solid in A, so I think it's fair to put her like A, but then add my personal opinion since it's my list and say A-. With that being said, next up, we got, yes, another duelist, ISO. ISO has been quite fantastic since his buff. It was followed up by a nerf, putting him in a strong but not broken state. He isn't S tier straight up just like unfair broken like he was for a little while, but he is a strong contender, and he is a good middle between being able to be a little bit more useful than Raina, even if you're not as effectively fragging out. Still, with that being said, he is brought down by that. Like, he is like, Raina is only one tier below ISO just for the simple fact that you can set up a vulnerable for an entry for your duelist. You can help out your team with the shield wall. You can even help out your team in a 2 versus 1 situation by ulting and having the other push, even if you lose the 1v1, securing the win. That's literally the only reason. However, his solid A+ position really does come through when you yourself are still playing great. So there is still that small variable. Play well, get those shields, keep resetting, ult, and actually get those picked by learning how to play with his ult very well. But still, if you're not going to be doing that great, you can still be effective with your other utility. You just got to learn, my man, and it makes ISO a really strong contender. The next one, an extremely strong agent, we have Killjoy. Killjoy bouncing between S and A, usually often to do with the map pool. Right now, she is an A tier agent. Killjoy will remain strong for a very, 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 very long time unless they do some major nerfs to her. She is just reliable. She isn't too hard to overall understand. Yes, there is still a skill ceiling, of course, but still, you can learn, pick up, get good with Killjoy, and stay reliable. So consistent. Learn setups for each map, especially on defense. Learn how to attack as Killjoy. Make sure you're blocking your flank. And she's just so good, so valuable. A lot of info, a lot of locking down potential, a lot of push potential, a lot of oppression potential. She's just filled with potential. She's basically A+/S-. It really just depends on the rank you are and your skill level. Like, I think gold down, she is like easily S. Even plat, easily S. Diamond plus, as people learn to play against her more effectively, she just gets knocked down to A, if that makes sense. Like, it's weird. I want to put her S, but like, I'm really split. I think halfway up your climb, she will be S, and the other half, she's A. But then by then, you've also gone a lot better at her, so she's just a good pick. You can't go wrong. Just pick Killjoy and have fun. I think she's just a really great agent overall. So next up, we're talking about Omen, and before I repeat that commentary right there, I need to say that this was done before the Omen change. However, I do believe that his nerf is being blown out of proportion, and I personally will not be changing my ranking based off of the one-way nerfs. They are a bummer, and it sucks that Riot is reducing skill expression, but they are not the main reason I believe that Omen was this strong. He is still a strong playmaking agent, and that's why I'm still keeping his placement. Let's get into Omen now. I have seen so many lists do my boy dirty, but maybe they're just looking at VCT or Radiant gameplay, and even then, Omen is a strong solo smoker. He was basically the only option you had if you are solo duoing and not only want to provide smokes for your team, but make outplays, play aggressively, and also learn a lot of tactics that can shift the game, especially like in 1v5 situations as a solo player in like silver, gold, plat, diamond, etc. But still, with that being said, the only new agent that is now able to compete with Omen in this exact category is Clove, but still, it doesn't diminish Omen. He is still extremely strong. Omen is a fantastic solo pick if you really do still want to try to hard carry your team while providing essential team comp for Valorant, which is just having smokes. It is what it is. I know not everyone wants to play smokes, but if you are forced, there's only 2 agents I would choose as smokers, and one of them is 100% Omen. I believe a lot of tier lists underrated him, and I wanted to glaze him up because I think he is extremely strong. Is he perfect? Obviously not. Every agent has both pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, but Omen in a solo duo environment across all ranks, both skill floor and skill ceiling, is strong. Maybe his skill floor can be a little bit high, but even then, I don't know. I think he's very strong. Don't just randomly TP in the enemy spawn and die though. We need to move on from those days, please. But as long as you're willing to put in the time, I believe you do benefit while putting that time into learning Omen. Now, as we enter the S tier, we got 3 agents remaining. I'm gonna lead with a controversial one due to his, like, he literally just got nerfed. So I need to start with this one because I'm debating between A and S, and I'm just gonna put him S and I'll explain why, and then you can let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you are a Gecko main, because that's who we're talking about. Gecko recently received nerfs, and they are good nerfs. They are actually substantial, and it's for this reason. Gecko has been like top tier for a while now, and the nerfs are strong, but I feel like the nerfs really affect him in the higher elos. Like, those nerfs are going to affect the average player overall, but really affect the higher elos who are playing Gecko just a lot more efficiently. Like, every second counts a lot more in higher elo, while I actually always said multiple times Gecko is strong in the mid to lower ranks, and mid again up till diamond, because of how versatile he is, right? Playing defensively, playing straight up get onto site. Wingman is always going to be effective on adding pressure to defusing and planting the spike throughout every single rank, but the lower the more pressure, the lower the less people can deal with it. And these aren't small things we're dealing with. It's not the speed of shooting out a damn arrow or a killjoy bot. It's the speed of a plant or defuse, the main objective of Valorant. And the slower people are to react on Wingman, the more effective Gecko is going to be. That's just my straight opinion. Like, it's an opinion and I want a borderline fact, but I'm not a Radiant player myself, and these tier lists are for the average player and based on my opinion as well. Still, I think it's a strong opinion, and I think it still makes sense. Now, the nerfs definitely knock him down in the higher ranks. This is why I was close to putting him in A tier, because yes, they are still substantial nerfs, and I can't just avoid them, but yet he's so strong in the mid to lower ranks that I feel like he's worth putting in S tier, and he's so versatile and can help everything. Like, he will propel you forward as you improve your game sense, as you improve your mechanical skill, and as you improve your awareness. So I don't know, in my opinion, I still want to put him like S-, A+. Let me know what you think down below. After that, we got Clove, another kind of controversial one, because Clove has multiple times been nerfed, and some people are saying they're now A tier. I think Clove is still pretty solid in S tier, just because I can't be glazing up Omen and then not glaze up Clove, because Clove can do a lot of what Omen can do, but just overall more effectively with self-sustain, bringing yourself back to life, etc. Like, I think Clove is strong for obvious reasons. Like, even if you mess up and you die, you be smoking after death, and if you're playing well with your team, then obviously you should be in the area where it can still be effective. Not always, but still, I believe Clove can be more forgiving than Omen, but still have that high skill ceiling to play them extremely, and I mean extremely effectively. It can be difficult because Clove sort of sells themselves when it comes to being extremely strong. There's not too much I need to say. Most people know Clove is an extremely powerful pick, and the only real contingency is just making sure you're putting enough time to understand the agent well enough. But if you're already watching this list, you're putting in more time than the average Valorant player. You're watching a video just about info, opinion, and, you know, criticism to see if you agree or disagree and improve your own gameplay. So you can't really go wrong with Clove, and putting Clove in S tier kind of felt like a no-brainer, at least in my opinion. Most tier lists also have Clove in S tier, I believe, but either way, S tier, IMO. Finally, someone who just keeps dominating S tier for the longest time now, I'm not gonna lie. Like a lot of other things, I sort of glaze up Cypher here, and I know he got pretty substantial nerfs in 9.10. However, after actually visually seeing that fade-in effect nerf, but I don't think those nerfs at all are going to affect his potency, because Cypher still does one thing very well, which is being Cypher. No one else can compete with him, and that's the reason I want to keep him up in S tier. His sight control is one thing, sure. I maybe find even Killjoy's sight control itself better, but then his info gathering is just infinitely better, and no one can info gather like Cypher. Sure, if they nerfed his range, so if he was on one site, his camera wouldn't work on the other, yes, fine. Maybe that would knock him down to A tier, but as of right now, I don't think his nerfs were strong enough to knock him from his throne up in S tier, but that's just genuinely my opinion, and I still have more to yap about, so let's roll into the original commentary as I sort of keep glazing Cypher. Cypher is very strong, and putting him in S tier, to me, always had a personal conflict. It's just that he's so overwhelmingly S tier in everyone else's agent tier list that I can't be an ignorant little bit. My point being is that Cypher still takes some time. Like, if anyone just picks up Cypher, you're not going to be very effective for your team, and that's sort of the big contingency here, is that you got to play Cypher enough, and in my opinion, also search up some YouTube videos to understand setups on each site and how to play Cypher on attack, because a lot of people falter while playing Cypher, and in the wrong hands, he's like kind kind of useless, and I feel the average low rank player picking up Cypher isn't very effective. So for all those reasons, I would actually, in my opinion, usually swap Killjoy and Cypher, just because I think you can be more effective consistently with Killjoy. But I'm putting faith back into like Silver Gold Plus. So I'm just gonna leave out Iron Bronze, which would take longer to learn the key fundamentals, but like Silver Gold Plus, you spend some time learning Cypher, you can be very consistently effective. You even leave sight, and with a good setup, you still have sight, unlike Killjoy, which will be disabled at range. Cypher is very good with info, and I can't also deny the fact that Cypher in that mid rank, like as a gold player, will effectively rapid pace your growth when it comes to awareness and game knowledge. I think that's just a fact, right? Learning those setups and understanding why those setups are there based off of people's enemies rotations, why you're guarding this area, when you're opening up your cam, where they're pushing, learning, and then taking that knowledge and effectively playing off of it, right? That's the big one here. Taking that knowledge, communicating it to your team, and playing off of it is just gonna rapid growth your awareness and game strength and game knowledge, sorry, when it comes to Valorant. And all that while just being a strong fundamental agent, the best when it comes to info gathering. Yeah, it's not hard to see why he's in S tier. Really, his biggest weakness is get good fast and learn, put in the time. Anyways, that's my agent tier list. Let me know what you think down below. They're always a little bit long because I yap and give my opinion, but most of you are gonna skip to a couple agents, so I want the portion where you skip to that agent to be good. I want it to be effective, and you actually get like a little video inside of this much longer video all put together into an agent tier list. Let me know what you think down below. Agree, disagree. I'm open to criticism. I'm even open to changing this tier list based off of that criticism. If that's what happened with Deadlock, I'm okay being wrong. No harm, no foul. Let's talk, be a community best we can. I know it's Valorant, but we try our best. Okay, bye.